ABD to PhD show. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. We are looking forward to today's episode. We're going to talk about all things related to your dissertation questions. So if you have any questions about the dissertation process, this is your opportunity to ask your questions. What I'm going to do first is that folks who are part of our Done Dissertation Text Community, last week, they were able to submit questions that they had about the dissertation process. So I'm going to go through some of those today for some of their questions to start us off. And then if folks who are watching live have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will bring them into the conversation. But as always, this episode of From ABD to PhD show is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you to write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you want to learn more and want to apply to work with us, visit www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code that is in front of your screen right now if you're watching this on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. And shout out to some of my Velocity clients who I see you have jumped on right now. Good to see you all. And with that, I want to talk about some Q&As, but before I get into the Q&A real quick, I want to tell you all, because some of folks don't know, and for those who are in our community, you're going to get all the information about this. And those who are not in our community already, this is something that you need to know right now. So coming up next month in July, we are going to start hosting what we call our Done Dissertation Summer School Series. So we're going to do each Wednesday in the month of July, we're going to host what we call summer school, and we're going to talk about different things related to research in the dissertation process, only in a closed community. So it won't be live here for you to watch. We will actually be doing this via a private channel, and the only way to get information about this is to become part of our Done Dissertation community. And what you can do if you're interested in being part of our community, you can scan the QR code that is here on your screen, and that will give you access to our dissertation survival guide that you can have access to, and that will bring you into our community and on our email list as well as our text message list. This is way that you'll get information, updated information about what we have going on, and then you'll get all the information and detail about the upcoming summer school series in July. And again, if you're not part of our community, you're not on our email list or text message community, you will not have access to this opportunity. You'll hear about it later on from someone who's in our community. So make sure that you scan the QR code here to go ahead and join us and be part of our community. And so with that, what I want to do real quick is we brought up and had some people who had questions from our text message community. And I want to go through a couple of those because I think there were some interesting questions that will help us to start off our conversation today. And with that, I'm going to bring some of these questions up because I think I really want to start thinking about this. And one of the first questions that I want us to consider is this idea. Shout out to Damaris who submitted this question via text, one of the several questions. And one of the questions that goes around is like, how do I decide on a dissertation topic? So for many of us, we're trying to figure out how do we create and how do we develop this topic? And so I want to give us some thoughts on how to possibly consider thinking about our topic slightly differently. So for many folks, when you think about the dissertation process, you're trying to figure out what is my topic. There are a number of ways to go about this. One of those ways is to read the literature, right? So this is an important component of the process. A lot of folks go into the doctoral program with like a ballpark idea a lot of times of what you want to do. And so the first component to doing this is actually reading the literature. So if you're trying to figure out what you want your topic to be, first is like you need to read up on what's happening in your field. Then from there, once you do your reading, then you can start to kind of hone in on and thinking about what are the scholars not focused on that they should be focused on related to your topic. And this is the part where you're trying to kind of find what people call the gap in the quote gap in the literature. And so you have to start taking the opportunity to start thinking about that. Once you do your reading and you really start to become well versed in your literature base, you will start to see where your dissertation go pretty easily. And I think a number of students, sometimes when we hear these comments from folks, they often ask us about like picking out their topic. And sometimes you're thinking about it too granularly. So sometimes you want to make such a unique contribution and do something completely different. Whereas a lot of times the great research is done by just taking something that's already pre-existing and having a different slant on it, maybe a different framework or a different way of looking at an issue. And that way you can find and do something unique in your research. So if you're trying to figure out what your topic is, you have to do the reading, and then you have to figure out, all right, what are they doing that I could do differently? And so for some of you all, it might be same topic but a different population. For some of you all, it might be same topic that others have studied but a different theoretical framework. To give an example, let's say for instance, I studied I wanted to understand the success of let's say high school students in mathematics, right? That would be our broad topic. Mathematic achievement is our broad topic. I might have done some reading and recognized that one of the ways that I, could make a unique contribution is maybe that there's not a discussion of girls in mathematics. And then maybe within that conversation, hey, there might be a discussion about girls in mathematics, but there's not a discussion about Black girls in mathematics, for instance. Shout out to Nicole Joseph, Ebony McGee, and some other folks who've been in that, Black mathematics space, particularly Nicole Joseph and Black women in mathematics, right? So, you might look into that particular lens. You might find there's something there. For someone else, your contribution might be, hey, I know there's been a lot of work on, the mathematical achievement of Black girls, but I want to look at it through math anxiety, right? So that's a different framework of looking at mathematics achievement through. So there are a number of ways that you can make unique contributions with the dissertation topic, but sometimes it's about, finding what that is. And then what I do know for some of you all, and let me know in the comments if this is the case for you all, a number of folks who are often trying to develop topics, pick a topic that's so specific, and then you get frustrated when you can't find literature on it. For instance, you might be looking at, third grade students or third grade teachers, instructional, maybe let's say, I'm trying to think of one I had recently from a person I talked to. Like it was the third grade students and their teachers' experiences with reading assessments. And then all they were doing was trying to find literature and things about third grade students and not recognizing that you'd take a step out of that literature base. And so all these things start to become important when developing a topic, because you want a topic, of course, that's specific, but not so specific that you kind of box yourself in. You're trying to find things to help your literature base and you can't. And so there's a fine balance there. And this is something that you want to consider, Damaris, as you're thinking about your topic. And so I want to say thank you for that question. Another question that we got that came in was about from Thelma. Shout out to Thelma, who is one of our Velocity alum, who says, what are some career advice after you finish your doctoral program? And so, Thelma, when we're thinking about this particular question around career advice, I always just say, what is your goal after finishing, right? And so a lot of what we do in our Velocity Group coaching program is helping folks not only think about what they're doing right now, but then also planning for the future. So like if you want to be a consultant, start thinking about now, where are the people who would bring you on as a consultant? Where do they go? What conferences do they attend? What things do they read, and like be a part of that community with them. For some folks, they might want to go on the tenure track and be a tenure track, assistant professor. So while they're in the doctoral program finishing their dissertation, it might be now like, let's work on your CV, cover letter, research statement, teaching statement, all those things to get you ready for that faculty piece that happens after. So there are a number of things to consider with career options. One thing I've known, because I've kind of gone the unique route in terms of career trajectory, just do whatever makes sense for you, right? So sometimes, folks want to fit you into their aspirations for you, but you have to recognize, what do you want for yourself? So for me, I love doing entrepreneurship, but I love being a professor. Not a lot of folks like to blend the two. This is something I really enjoy. So that's my unique kind of career trajectory. Whereas some folks might, want to have, had I stayed a professor, some folks might have pushed me, oh, why don't you, you got tenure, go ahead and become, a dean or provost, or go that route. But that might not be the route I want to go in my career. So Thelma, for you, and when you're thinking about these things, it's like, figuring out what do you want. And then what ends up helping you out is that figuring out who is at a position to where you want to be, and then start to get to know them, because what you want to start doing is understand what their trajectory was to get into that current role or into that current space that they're in. And so, for instance, if you want to be a consultant, interact and talk with other consultants who have done what you've been able to do or want to do in making that career move. Those things will help you as you're trying to figure out where to go with careers, because there's so many options with a doctoral degree. That's why I love having doctoral degrees. I mean, you can go industry with your doctoral degree within your field and outside your field, especially if with your research skill set. You can work in the governmental setting, depending on what your area is. You can, work for yourself in terms of building a business. You can also, go, of course, higher education. You can do faculty. You could do administration. There are so many opportunities with a doctoral degree, and my goal is to help you all earn the doctorate and then set yourself up for the career success after. But these are some of the great things that we will be covering and talking about during our summer school series. So for those of you just tuning in, we have in the month of July our summer school series where we're going to be focusing on specific things related to the dissertation process to get you ready to finish this thing up. So the only way that you get access to information about summer school is if you are a part of our Done Dissertation community, whether you're on our text list or our email list. And if you're looking to get involved with us, go ahead and scan the QR code that is on the screen. That will take you to our a guide that you can grab, and that will get you into our community. And so in the guide, we're teaching you 10 strategies that will make sure that you don't stay ABD forever. So if you want to get access to that guide and become part of our community to get more information about summer school, because it will be a closed session, make sure that you go here, or you can visit www.dissertationmistake.com is the URL that you can go to as well if you want access to the guide. And thank you for folks who've been dropping this in. Again, you can join us here. Link is in the chat for my folks who are watching on YouTube. Again, I hope this is helpful so far as we're thinking about this process of getting out of these doctoral programs. We want to be mindful about how we're positioning ourselves. And so, of course, we got to figure out our topic. And then Thelma asked a great question around, what advice do you have after you finish your doctoral program? So the next question I want to explore is related to, and it was submitted by Erica. And this is a question we always get, and I think it's an important one to consider, right? Is about, how do we navigate the IRB process? And so this is one that always trips a lot of folks up when you're trying to think about what to do and how to do it. IRB is the thing. So Erica, we're going to talk about that here briefly. So thank you for submitting your question. And so when we're thinking about IRB, so for those of you all don't know, IRB is the Institutional Review Board. It's a governing body at your university who will review your procedures and protocol for your study before you are allowed to conduct the research. IRB process was started initially because of some malpractice in research methods and, having vulnerable populations being subjected to crucial and critical treatment during experiments and during studies that, endangered, it caused bodily harm to many folks, as well as psychological harm. So, these boards are put in place really as a mechanism to protect the university, but also as a way to ensure that the research is sound before you do it. And so what I always say about the IRB process, if you're trying to figure out how to get through this thing, simply follow the instructions. So at your university, they will have specific instruction on what you're supposed to do and what documents you are to submit when you apply for IRB. I used to sit on the IRB committee for one of the universities when I was a professor. And you'd be surprised about sometimes IRB applications that come in and folks have not followed the instructions. Something as simple as making sure your name is on things, or making sure that you've uploaded, the abstract for your project, or that you uploaded your interview protocol, or the survey that you plan to use, or whatever it is. You want to make sure that you have all of the information needed so that they can review your document. It's nothing worse than being on an IRB committee and the person has not submitted all of the required materials, because a lot of times the administrator at the IRB office will kick it back to you and say, hey, you didn't submit, or you didn't check off these boxes and you need to resubmit your application. And the reason why you want to, in this case, follow the directions to the T is because you want to have the best chance for it to go through the first time. Because at some universities, and every university is different, so you got to learn about what the process looks like at your institution. Some universities only meet like once per month, and then sometimes they don't even meet during the summer. So you might only have from, let's say, September to April to submit IRB. And so you got to keep that time frame in mind, right? So when I'm talking about following instructions, then one of the instructions is like figuring out, do they have a submission due date? And if it is due by a certain date, you better have it done by that date, or they will not review it to the following month. And if you catch them when they're not doing reviews, you might miss out on a month or two out because you didn't adhere to that particular deadline requirement. And so these are things that I want you all to consider with the IRB process, is like actually just following and checking off all the things that are required for submission to your university. A number of universities now are doing more rolling submissions, but again, not every university is like that. I have a couple of clients right now who just defended their proposal, or and getting ready to submit IRB, and are up against the deadline because they got to get this in before that IRB committee meets. And so again, these are things that you want to consider with the process. And I would always say make it simple as possible. So like your informed consent forms, make sure those are straightforward. A lot of times your university will give you templates for all these documents. And then when in doubt, call the IRB office. They are people who are really helpful and give a lot of great information just about what to do, how to navigate the process, and they're advocate for you. They want you to do the research, right? But it's just making sure that you have, cross your T's and dotted your I's with the process. And so Erica and others who are thinking or in going through IRB, that is something that you want to consider with navigating the process. So again, if this is helpful, please let me know. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. And again, this opportunity, we will talk more and more about the dissertation process during our summer school session. So what we're doing in the month of July is we are hosting 4 summer school sessions each Wednesday evening. But the only way you have access to the information about summer school is being part of our community. So if you are not already either on our email list or text message list, you need to get on it ASAP. So what you can do if you're looking at this online, you can go ahead and scan the QR code if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. You can scan the QR code that's on the screen right now to the right. Scan that QR code, download our dissertation process survival guide, and that will get you onto our list. This way, you have access to that information because we're going to start to promote, and you all will have information to join us. And only folks on our list will join. It's kind of like the club. If you're not on the guest list, you're not getting in. So just make sure that you are part of our community because we will be checking to make sure that you are involved with us. And again, we want to help folks, but we want to make sure folks are, knowing about what we have going on, but we're going to keep this closed. So those won't be live in this month. And so I see Fish says, let's see, thanks for the opportunity. Keep it up. Perfect. Yeah, we're trying to help folks get through this process. So if you know folks who are writing their dissertations, trying to get through, make sure you join us. And some of these topics will also apply to just research more generally, but it definitely be geared toward dissertation writers. But we're going to talk about things around academic writing, developing theoretical conceptual frameworks, thinking through the lit review process, and then also in writing a literature review, and then also how to navigate feedback from your chair and committee members. And so those are things I want us to, to talk about during our summer school sessions. So again, to learn more about our summer school sessions, what the topics are, all those things, join our community. Make sure you scan the QR code here. And for folks who might be watching this on replay and don't have the ability to scan the QR code, you can go to www.dissertationmistake.com, and I will bring this up on screen so you have access to the link. But again, we want to make sure that you all are grabbing these guides and make sure that you get the information that you need to get through the process. So dissertationmistake.com will take you directly to the website to grab your guide. That way you're part of our community. And so one of the last questions submitted, and what we did, we had a number of questions, over I think it was about 10 or 15 questions submitted, and I kind of bunched them all into groups because they really overlapped in a lot of different places. And so one of the last questions I want to review was talking about our committees and chairs. And so that question I want to explore is, and it was submitted by S.M. It says, how do we work with an unresponsive dissertation chair? I think this is a phenomenal question and one we get quite often as folks are thinking through how to navigate the process. And so what I want to do is talk more about this because it's such an important component, but oftentimes we don't think about it until it's too late and wondering why our process, we're frustrated. So when we have an unresponsive chair, one way to work with them is you have to start reaching out, because sometimes what I found has happened, some chairs are unresponsive because you as a student are unresponsive. And what I mean by that is that maybe been months since you reached out to them. And for some professors, because they have other students that they're trying to balance, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. But what I want you to start doing is, leveling, managing up to your chair is like start reaching out. And if you notice that your reach outs aren't happening, the first step might be to reach out to a committee member, right? And say, hey, I've been trying to get a hold of X professor. Could you reach out to them, or can we figure out a time to meet us 3 together? Like you might have to use a committee member to help get you access to your chair. So sometimes that's the case. One funny story is one of our clients was having this particular situation, and we went through the email route. They were unresponsive via email. Then we went through the kind of connecting with another committee member to get that person on board, and they still were somewhat unresponsive. Then it got to a point where we had to figure out, all right, how do we get a hold of this person and figure out how they communicate? But we recognized that it was this at this particular time, it was the end of the semester. They were doing an end of semester event for the whole department. And so I told the student, go to that event. And sure enough, they went to that event and that professor was there. And so they had a chance to talk to them in person. Whereas maybe the email didn't work because they had so many other emails and things coming through on their timeline. But that really helped this particular student navigate the unresponsiveness of their chair. So sometimes you got to get creative with these things. Sometimes you got to pull up on folks in person in their office, or if sometimes when they're teaching, you might have to show up there if you can't get a hold of them, or you try to do this at the last resort. But sometimes you didn't have to follow the process and say, hey, if I can't get a hold of my chair, do I talk to the department chair to kind of help me navigate the process? And so I would just say, try to exhaust all of your options as a student at first, and then when you need to, run it up the chain of command. But do so in a way that, again, we're just trying to, you still want to maintain some rapport with that chair because they do hold a lot of power in the situation. So I understand how it can be an uncomfortable spot. But this is why, too, for folks who are not the dissertation process, this is why choosing your chair wisely is such an important component. And this is why it's important to have a relationship with your chair and talk about expectations early and often so that you know that, hey, if my chair is someone that does not is not responsive to me, I can, I knew that from the start, so I didn't select them as a chair, right? And you might know from being a professor, like that person as a professor wasn't that responsive to you, that it took weeks to get you back your paper. All those things add up and give you signs that this might not be the perfect person for you. And then if you have no choice in the matter, sometimes, again, having those conversations at the beginning of the relationship to say, hey, how do you like for me to communicate with you? And let them tell you how they want to be communicated with and how often. This way, you know what the rules of engagement are, and you're not getting frustrated, and then they're not getting frustrated either with you. So it's a fine balance with this thing. And I found for a lot of our students, it's just, first is just getting on one accord with your chair and then figuring it out from there. But sometimes, again, you may have to run it up the chain of command because some folks just aren't responsive. And just to give you all some insight from the faculty side, sometimes faculty are just overloaded, especially depending on the time of year. Like I know for me in May was absolutely bananas because of the end of semester activities. I had a number of students defending their dissertations and their dissertation proposals, and just all of these finishing up classes, all these things happening all at once, conference travel, like all these things happening at once makes the end of the month, and particularly in May, a very chaotic month for faculty. So you have to kind of take that into account as well. And sometimes you have to give your professor some grace, but then, still maintain that rapport with them. And so, again, for folks who are just tuning in, again, we're talking about questions that you all might have about the dissertation process. But here, what you will see is that we are running what we call our summer school series, and this will happen in the month of July. But the only way you'll learn more information about our summer school series, where each week we're going to focus on one aspect related to doctoral studies and the dissertation process. The only way you're going to find about those is if you're part of our community. And so in order to become part of our community, you need to either be on our email list or text message list. So if you want to get involved, make sure that here you can scan the QR code. It will take you right to our guide, which you can download for free. And this will get you to our community. And the guide will give you 10 strategies on how not to stay ABD forever. It's our dissertation process survival guide. So you click the link, make sure that you grab your guide right now. And so with that, I do want to open it up for questions. So those are the main 4 overarching questions that we received from our community. So first things first, I want to say thank you to everybody via text message sent their messages in. We do see those and we do interact with you all via text message. And I want to say thank you so much for submitting those questions. And so I do see a Facebook user, I just can't see the name, does have a question. And their question is, do you have any recommendations or preferences on cloud storage platforms for saving your work on your dissertation? So, yeah, I don't have any endorsement on any one in particular. I just always say have it in multiple places. I know, a number of folks might use, Google Workspace, Dropbox, Box. There are a number of platforms. I'm just saying wherever works best for you and that you have access to. One thing I will say for those of y'all who might use your work, let's say, for instance, your job has a subscription to Dropbox. If you use your work subscription, be mindful of that because you don't own that subscription. And let's say you stop being employed by that institution or job, they have access and they still can own that property that you put into their storage system. So when in doubt, if it's something that's related to your dissertation, have your own storage platform that you either pay for or that's free to you as an individual customer and not involved with any organization. That also goes for universities too. So if you're using your university's, let's say Google Workspace account or your university's, I don't know, Box account, if it's something related to your dissertation, have it in your own account that you have ownership of. Because say something happens, you want to have ownership of it and can take it off line yourself. So that would just be my one piece of advice as you are thinking about where to put your materials in terms of cloud storage. But they all work just about the same, to be quite honest with you, these days, and they're pretty good. So whichever one works best for you and that you have unlimited access to is the one I would go with. Are there any other questions? My folks on YouTube, folks dropping in on Facebook, LinkedIn, other spots, let me know what questions you all might have. I'll stay on for maybe another about maybe 5 or so minutes. Again, I want this to be a quick episode, just some Q&A. Folks might have questions, so feel free to drop them in. Even if you're not at the dissertation process, you got a question about things you're experiencing in your doctoral program, go ahead and drop your questions in. And if you're someone who is like, I'm already at a point, I need help, I want to get out of the dissertation process, I would invite you to apply to work with us. Definitely join our Velocity Group Coaching Program. And to apply with us, you can go ahead and visit www.velocitydissertation.com to apply to work with us. So if you're someone say, hey, I want to get help and I need help now, make sure that you apply to work with us. We want to help doctoral students get out of the process. And in our Velocity Group Coaching Program, it's a 4-month coaching experience, and it has the goal to help you to either write and defend your dissertation proposal or your final dissertation over the course of those 4 months. And we are so looking forward to helping more folks get out of the program. Shout out to, we've had like 3 or 4 people just finish up proposal and final defenses over the last week. So shout out to Dr. Terrace Watson, who successfully defended her dissertation at let's see, on about 2 days ago now at the time of this recording. I'm trying to think of other folks who have recently finished. Shout out to AB, Arian Bryant, for successfully defending his dissertation proposal a couple weeks ago. Also, shout out to Wantisa Hughes for defending her dissertation proposal last week. Let's see, who else am I? I know I'm missing a number of folks who have finished. I know so far we had about 10 folks who have earned a doctorate in spring 2023. And so these are the results we're getting, folks. We want folks to finish their dissertations, and we want you to be part of our community to do so. So if you're someone who needs help and is tired of just spinning around in circles, make sure that you tap in with us to get your dissertation done. And so are there any questions from folks in the audience? I'd be happy to take other questions that you all might have right now. And thank you for folks who've been tuning in on YouTube, LinkedIn, and my folks on YouTube. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button while you're watching. And again, is there any questions that folks have? And I'm looking through my comments just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Any questions? And again, I want to say thank you so much to our community and folks who have taken their opportunity and time to really just give us the questions that they had, because we want to be able to be helpful and want this to be informational for you all, but also give you the strategies to finish. Because I know recently I was posting about Wantisa defending her proposal, and if someone commented that they had been following our lives for their whole time, and actually that they successfully defended their dissertation this semester after 9 years of being stuck and being in their doctoral program. And so this is something that's so important that oftentimes we don't think about and have support through. And so I want to make sure that at Done Dissertation, we help give you all that strategy and insight to get through this process. And then those who need more support and actually want us to walk with you through that process can come to work with us. Shout out to Sashane McDonald. Shout out to you, and happy to be part of the community. No questions, just happy I'm making progress. Shout out to you. You are making progress. I'm glad to see your document is moving forward. Thank you for being part of our community. And so I see a question here from a Facebook user. It says, what is the longest dissertation by page count and the shortest dissertation by page count you have heard of? That's a great question. I'm trying to think on the short side of what I have seen. I'm trying to think of the shortest. I think the shortest, I did some quantitative studies that I've seen probably less than about 100 pages. So like roughly around like 80 to 90 pages, because that particular program was very short and to the point in terms of the type of study. And then sometimes these dissertation lengths can vary by discipline. So I'm always never really concerned about how long or short. I just need the thing to be done. And what you will be surprised about is that once you learn, and particularly in our program, learn our strategy on how to write and how to think through these chapters, you will easily develop a 150 plus page dissertation just by the way we teach and move folks through the process. Um, and so I'm don't be concerned about page count. Like those are the things that are not most important. On the long side, the longest side, I'm sure the dissertation is over like 600-700 pages for sure. I know the longest one I've seen from a client was 300 and I think it was like 318 pages. It was a qualitative study. It was like, but yeah, 318 pages. I remember I edited that particular dissertation. That was back when I used to edit dissertations, and I remember that was the longest one I saw. And so that is something to consider with this. But again, page count, I'm not even worried about that. You want to be more concerned with like, do I answer my research questions adequately? Is my literature review sound? Do I have a strong argument in chapter 1? Do I have a sound methodology plan? Like all those things, once you put them all together, you will be at 100 plus pages pretty quickly with this dissertation process. And another question from LinkedIn was, can I join to access guidance on how to get my proposal approved? I mean, the 4-month cohort? Yes, for sure. If you are looking to join us in our Velocity Group coaching program, you can go ahead and visit www.velocitydissertation.com. Or what I would do is actually you can scan the QR code that's here on the screen. If you're someone who wants to work with us and already know like, hey, I want to get some support to actually get my dissertation done, you can go ahead and just scan that QR code. It will take you to our page about the program, and then you can click apply now and submit your application. And again, you need to submit your application in order for us to review so that we make sure that we are the best fit for you. And again, we may not be the best fit for everybody. So we want to make sure that what you need is what we provide and we can support you to get to the finish line. And so it's a great question. So if you want more access, go ahead and scan that particular QR code that's on the screen, and you can go ahead and join us and be a part of the cohort. And then I will also follow up with you on LinkedIn because I can DM you on LinkedIn. So I'll send you the information as well. And I'm just writing your name down so I have it. And I will follow up with you after the live today. And again, thank you for in the YouTube link for dropping the link in. And so again, for folks who are not part of our community already, we are doing our summer school series in the month of July. We're going to talk about things related to research, design, academic writing, theoretical conceptual frameworks, literature reviews, and navigating and how to respond to feedback from your chair and professors. So make sure that you lock in with us. If you haven't, you can scan the QR code to get access to our guide, our dissertation process survival guide, and that will get you into our community. Are there any other questions? I'll stay on again. There's some good thoughts and questions that folks are asking. So please let me know if there are any questions at this time. If not, I look forward to seeing you all next week on another episode. So I'll give you all a minute or so to ask any last questions. And again, we're trying this out on a Friday. I know usually we've gone live, consistently on Tuesdays. We're going to try Fridays out around lunchtime to see how folks, this is a good time for people, maybe at lunch, maybe starting the work day if they're on the West Coast, or, we have folks all over the place in terms of time zones. So we, trying something different here, see how folks like this cadence. And we look forward to seeing you all again on this. And again, we want to get folks through the process. So if you're someone who's ready to be done and you want the strategy in order to do so, come to our summer school series. But more importantly, it gets to a point where you exhausted all the free opportunities that you can do. And if you have not finished and you've been spinning around trying to figure out how to do it, and what you've been doing previously has not worked for you, apply to work with us. And you can go right into our Velocity Group coaching program, and we can help support you get to the finish line. And if you're someone who wants to do that, make sure that you tap in with us in our Velocity Group coaching program at www.velocitydissertation.com. And with that, I don't see any other questions remaining. So what I'm going to do for today is go ahead and jump off. I hope you have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you all next week on another episode from ABD to PhD show. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. And make sure you share this. If you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube so that you can be part of our community when we go live and you have notifications when we do future episodes. But with that, I hope to see you all soon. Take care and have a good one.